Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Welcome to day 10 of our Alchemical Transformation Challenge. And so today we're going to
Everyone. I hope you guys are having an
talk
amazing
about,
day.
um,
Today.
let me mute that. Today we're going to talk about DNA, alchemical epigenetic. We're going to talk about the effects of the alchemical practices on our DNA, how they affect us, and what they do when we are utilizing these alchemical transmutation exercises. So it's going to be a deep one. We're going to dive in really deep. So wonderful to see you. Welcome, Kaya, MFS. Welcome, Samantha. It's so wonderful to have you here. Please do feel free to share this if you would like to share it. And we're going to jump right in. So today we're going to talk about what are the effects of this alchemical practices, the process of creation of high frequency chemicals in the brain that begin to activate the DMT, the natural source of DMT in the brain, that allow us to begin to expand our vision into higher frequency availability. So this is not just something that occurs in the visual senses or through the senses, but actually it is encoding and activating aspects of our DNA. Because in order to access higher dimensional information, in order to access these ranges of frequency that we otherwise would not have access to, there is an activation that has to occur in the DNA, which begins to enter into the DNA, the holographic DNA system, which is where we find the instruction manual that comes from the morphogenetic field. So this is where we're going to begin to work with that information to see how that actually functions. I know some of you have seen my presentation on holographic DNA. I'm going to touch a little bit on that today. We're going to kind of go a little bit through that, just so we can get clear in regards to how these systems are interconnected. So let me go ahead and open that up. Hello, everybody. Silban, so wonderful to see you. Samantha, my third eye is tingling for the last few days. What's happening? Awesome. I love to hear that. Again, as I was mentioning yesterday, when we start feeling these physiological side effects, this is our body activating. And especially if it's your third eye, you're opening your vision, your intuitive vision. You're exercising your third eye abilities, which is the intuitive body. And this allows us to begin to activate vision into the field. So continue in that direction gently, lovingly, with trust, with self-trust and compassion. And, we continue to practice your intuition now more than ever, because now you have activated that part of you. So we have to continue exercising it. All right, my loves. So let's get started. We're going to talk about DNA. Let me share my screen with you. Hey, Victoria, how are you? So good to see you. Hi, Mila Rose. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about epigenetic transmutation. What happens when we actually get into the process of utilizing these transmutation exercises to begin to activate our DNA? What are we activating? We're activating many systems of the body are coming online. So utilizing these techniques allow us to access the higher functions. We talked about the higher faculty that comes online, and through the activation of our pineal gland, which allows all of these high vibrational frequency chemicals to begin to run in our system. And those high vibration chemicals are essentially DMT being one of them, which is allowing us to expand our range of visibility in the spectrum of frequency. Okay, so when we activate the pineal gland, when we begin to produce that natural DMT production, then it begins to shift chemically the physical body and the way that it's processing information. But it also affects the memory system, the crystallization process of the body. That means that the physical body begins to flow life force through all three dimensions of the physical body. And this is what begins to activate through the spinal cord, through this main center of information, which is interconnected to the nervous system, that allows the endocrine system to begin to come online. Okay, so it's an interconnected system of information that we are activating within the body. Now, at the same time, as we begin to activate the DMT, we are also changing the brainwave patterns that we are emitting in the body. So just a quick review of what we've learned over the past couple days. So as a result of these different brainwaves that we're accessing, frequency that we're becoming aware of, and processes and chemicals in the body that we are refining, there is an epigenetic element to how we are functioning. And in order to understand the effects of this, we need to understand a little bit more about who we are, how we exist interconnected to one another. Now, we are an interconnected system of life force. And what produces this life force is different systems. We are innately, in the most core value, we are creators. We are designed because we are made up of infinite potential. The output of the unification of duality within the body, the feminine, masculine. Remember the serpent that we saw that creates that spinal fluid movement through the body, braiding, is a representation of the feminine and masculine life forces within the body that begin to braid themselves through the body as they begin to activate this multidimensional body. And through that incredible internal implosion that occurs out of the transformation of the lower and density energies into higher density energies, we are producing higher states of functioning. Now, in the physical body, we produce iron, which is pumped into the bloodstream. That is very important to nourishing the body, and it is what our blood is essentially made out of. But in the universe, what produces iron is the collision between stars. When stars collide, the output of that is iron. And this incredible collision is a life force creation, just like the process of transmutation that we're experiencing, bringing that life force into this up into the pineal gland that creates that life force expansion. We are also experiencing that in a micro format at the cellular level when we produce a life form. So when we begin to gestate a life form, when two cells begin to divide to create a human being, we're experiencing this incredible division of these cells. And in that same way, the multiplication of those cells is incredibly encoded with a potent life force. And that potent life force is the life force of co-creation that we hold within our body. This is one of the most powerful life forces that is accessible to mankind. In reality, in the universe, in this three-dimensional plane, it is the highest utilization of life force. It is because we are in the third dimensional plane. It's all about creation. It's all about bringing the third into life, birthing that third. And we experience this format of creation in a fractal sense in many different ways, whether it's the construct of our reality, whether it's the patterns that we see in nature in order to replicate and sustain the matrix, in order to reproduce, the way that our body functions and replicates cells in order to maintain balance in the physical body. All of these are micro examples of how the third plays out this Fibonacci cycle of co-creation. This spiral movement, spiral format from which we are existing in is embedded in intelligence of co-creation that is encoded in our DNA. Now, we are interconnected so much so that that same explosion, that incredible life force that is created by the stars and by the organization through a magnetic pool, through the different celestial bodies in our universe create this incredible runway of life force energy. And this runway of life force energy is something that's called lineage, which in Hawaii means immense heaven. This is such a beautiful concept, right? So this incredible runway of life force is a self-similar runway of life force that we have within our bodies, within the blood vessels that run to create the heart, within the lung nervous system, and the lung itself, how it's designed, the air passageways through the lung system are also designed in this incredibly beautiful system. And we are creating through our blood, through the production of our blood, that explosion, a micro explosion to create that iron. Okay, so you are this generator of life force, and we have many different ways that we create life force in the body. The cultivation of this life force is a matter of understanding that it's through these self-similar patterns we are interconnected. We connected with the universe. We are connected with Earth. We are connected with one another in such a profound way that it's through this morphogenetic field. What we're looking at when we look at this is we're looking at the morphogenetic field of all the organisms that exist with inside out, as above, so below. Okay, so what that means is that this interconnected system, which we see in mycelia connections with mushrooms and plants and trees, there's an interconnected network, which is like one mind, like one network that communicates with one another in order to maintain a homeostasis collectively for all the living organisms that reside next to each other. Well, we see those patterns in weather. The way that weather moves, the weather patterns are formed around the earth. And we also see them in patterns of how birds flock together. Okay. And this incredible self-organizing intelligence is what allows this physical body to intelligently maintain its existence in its highest operation, regardless of well, not regardless, but allowing for the human to explore and experience this temporary human experience in a way that it self-regulates according to what we're doing. Now, the more that we disconnect from ourselves and go back into sleep and hypnosis, the less sovereignty we have of this physical body. And so we fall into the patterns of counter creation of the earth. Okay, so then eventually human body can become sick and of course then dissolve into death because the vibrational frequency becomes stagnant in such a way that it causes illness and essentially death. And what happens is that anytime we die, essentially, we leave the physical body and begin to explore the out-of-body experience into this field, which we won't talk about today. But coming back to this, how we experience the field in the physical body, ways that we can access that understanding, experience that knowing, when we experience coherence, right? When you have large groups of people together, when you have a mother with a child and you're holding on to the child, the heartbeats begin to beat in unison, right? Partners, family members, there's a coherence that is created within these organisms, and we are connected, interconnected in the entire world through this field, this morphogenetic field that is then created by each one of us. Okay, so the same way plants sync up in their spiral movements of growth, patterns of expression, the same way women connect with other women and align their menstruation cycles. You know, it's really amazing. I mean, the entire system changes in order to match the next the organisms that are with us in our vicinity. So we are interconnected, and so in that interconnection there is a deep understanding that I want you to take away from today. That is that everything that you do, everything that you think, everything that you feel is affecting the collective in such a powerful way. And it's affecting it that way because everything is an extension of ourselves. The earth, the planet Earth itself, is an extension of ourselves, and we are an extension of that earth. You and I here on this call together are an extension of one another, and we come together by resonance. You and I have core subconscious belief systems that bind us together, that are uniting us in this journey of evolution. And we also come together in the bigger picture as families. When we incarnate into our families, we are connecting with the family in which we are incarnating into by resonance, by what the soul is choosing to experience based on its greater experience as a whole. So we make up the morphogenetic field through all of these access points of consciousness that we are connecting to. All living organisms operate within this field, and the fields are responsive and affected by bioelectrical and chemical stimuli. So if you take this into consideration and you talk about alchemical transmutation, when you begin to create these incredible electrical charges in your body by producing that transmutation, you are literally shifting not just yourself, but you are affecting the collective. Each organ system within the individual exists within its own field. So every single organ as well is intercommunicating. When you begin to activate one aspect, it begins to affect the rest of the organs as well. So how can we apply this into our everyday modern life in a practical manner? Healing, right? Healing takes place. The body creates this homeostasis. The homeostasis begins to become affected by the input of a higher frequency that allows all organisms to come into alignment. Individuals, families, culture, races, and nationalities share larger fields. Okay, so this is like the field of the entire world now. How are we interconnected with other human beings in this world, right? We are interconnecting in this network in which every change that every one human does in a family network affects the whole. And this is what we're going to talk about today in a deep way. So DNA is the blueprint of this data and written in vivo, affecting the whole. So it's really important to understand this. Our DNA, it doesn't take a break from producing its protein. It doesn't take a break from continuing to write the code that creates your feet, your body, your physical vessel. Understand what that means. Everything that your environment, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're sensing, what you're eating is all affecting and providing data for that protein to be written. It can either be written in a counter-creative manner or it can be written in a creative manner. Okay, so these are the two things that we have to take responsibility, and it depends on our level of creation in which we are contributing to that. The more unconscious and dormant we are, the more we are counter-creating for ourselves and for the collective. And when we talk about alchemical transmutation, we are literally accessing the base code of this physical hologram because the hologram, this system functions in this electromagnetic manner that when these electrical charges are run through the body, producing these high level refined chemicals in the body, it begins to rebalance everything. And this is written in the DNA in a way that creates a heightened level of frequency in your DNA. Essentially, it creates a mutation in your DNA. So this field, which is more like an electromagnetic system, it projects this hologram of the physical body. The body is a hologram. And we understand that it's a hologram because we see how the body has a phantom limbs, right? Where we're able to remove parts of the body, but yet can still connect to this holographic system that allows us to create artificial mobility in the body with prosthetics. And we also see this with organs. in the body. When they're taken out, we are still functioning in that way. And the network of the body is very holographic in a sense. When we try to heal the body, we can affect from the morphogenetic field to the form which is coming into its physical manifestation. So this organism then, when we talk about holographic system, really can be affected by vibrational frequency. And that's really what DNA reprogramming is about. When you change the programs that you're running in the subconscious mind, it's a vibrational frequency shift. You are alchemizing from a low density thought form, low wave pattern into a high wave pattern, and that affects the entire body as a whole. Now, I know you guys have heard me talk about this before, but this wonderful Dr. Garayev, who talks about DNA reprogramming, did an entire clinic to study this on how DNA is altered and can be written, and even limbs can be grown by utilizing sound wave modulating wave patterns into sound frequency that adjust what the protein is writing. Okay, and DNA is like a language. The codons are transfixed to create words and sounds, creating syntax, a meaning, when you provide meaning for that. Now, meaning is very important because meaning, there's an intelligence to this morphogenetic field that already has a blueprint to maintain the balance in this organism. So even if you have half of your body missing, the entire body will recalibrate in order to manage the functions of the body. The mind cannot be limited by the body having issues or blockages. This is what I want you to understand. And of course, this is all scientifically proven that even though, we're missing parts of the body can still find a homeostasis because it is the power of the mind over the physical that we are learning how to cultivate. And that cultivation of the mind over the physical allows us to bring the body into its highest functioning state. So if you have an illness, if you have something wrong with your physical body, you feel your body is not operating correctly, understand that the higher function of this is to access into the subconscious root programs that are feeding into the parasitic thought forms that take the body out of balance. That's the whole point. We have to access those. Okay, so when we're doing DNA reprogramming, essentially, we are learning how to deprogram limiting belief systems and alchemizing them into higher programs, higher frequency in the embodiment. So now let's talk about how does this affect our collective? How does this affect us, in the physical, in our everyday lives? Well, 80% of our DNA is creating what we think is called junk DNA. And it is within this junk DNA that is not responsible for writing the protein that creates your physical body. Only 2 to 3% of your DNA writes the body, all of its complex functions, all of the way that it's, creating the systems, the runways of communication, the organs, the intricate layers of your system. That is all being taken care of by this 1 to 2%. So the rest of this DNA, and remember that in 1 tablespoon of DNA, you can store the world's history. So the amount of information that we hold within the body transcends what it's affecting in the physical. That's because we are mostly, that 80% is encoding the holographic body, the multidimensional body, because we are mostly non-physical. Remember, when we begin to activate our DNA, we begin to access higher dimensional planes. Well, it's within the holographic DNA that exists the blueprint that allows us to have access to these higher dimensional planes. And when we process this alchemical transmutation, where we begin to access natural DMT in order to have the vision of seeing by frequency ranges beyond the visible light with our eyes, we begin to activate the higher senses that allow us to access these higher frequency waves. And all of these waves all of these that we know, because there's many other frequencies that we're not even familiar with and on our list that go beyond that. When you begin to access higher dimensional levels, can be processed and experienced. And this is what happens in interdimensional contact. When we experience interdimensional contact, we are entering and we're interacting with beings, fractals of our own self, in which are within these higher dimensional frequencies. Now, there's an element of this that is very important that is connected with the hybridization program that I'm going to touch on a little bit here, but again, that'll be part of a different series. But when we talk about the hybridization program, when we create life, and this comes down to the primal form of co-creation of mankind, that the frequency that we are merging with activates an organism that is a combination of all genetic data. Genetic data that is available through your body, through this morphogenetic field, through junk DNA, which informs from which is the blueprint of this morphogenetic field that interconnects us with the whole, is the access to these higher dimensional levels within ourselves. So essentially, our DNA, when it's oscillating to create its own field, its own vibrational frequency, we can transmute and write a DNA that can be multidimensional, that has multidimensional access, which means that we begin to have access to our starseed lineages. We begin to remember past lives, because again, we are all existing simultaneously. It's within the junk DNA that is encoded all of these fragmentations of ourselves in simultaneous timelines, archetypes, which of course are fragmentations anyway, or fractalizations, I should say, extraterrestrial aspects of ourselves, which are fractals of ourselves, all of which we are exploring and expanding. And there are two spheres of access. Everything that is within the up until the around 9th dimensional plane is everything that belongs to the terrestrial DNA, to the morphogenetic field that binds the information of the earth. So the Akashic records. So your ancestors, and all of the history of ancestors and past lives that you've interconnected from. That's the inner sphere. The outer sphere, outside of that, is fractalizations of yourself in higher dimensional planes beyond the 9th dimensional plane, up until the 13th dimensional plane. However, everything within these 12, 13 dimensional planes is what we know as the matrix. It is the experience of duality in all of its potential expressions, which means that there's exchanges with all of these aspects of ourselves. We're here to experience exchange from the other, because this is how one creates. When two unite, the third is born, right? So that we experience that unification process internally, subconsciously, and in other aspects in a fractal form as well. So what does that mean? That when we begin to integrate fractals of ourselves through DNA reprogramming or meditation, we are becoming one with the whole, because as soon as you access a memory, emotional memory, through your alchemization process, how do you raise frequency is that you have to access the low emotion and learn how to change that low emotion into unconditional love. So in that process, you're going to discover father, mother had participated in that experience, grandma, grandpa repeating the same experience, great grandma, great grandma. So we begin to access the morphogenetic field in which our ancestral lineage is expressed. And it's within the morphogenetic field, it's within our ancestral lineage that we begin to notice the patterns that we adopted as a part of the participation in the matrix in order to experience duality, and in order to experience the transmutation process falling from the highest frequency before we incarnate into the physical and the life in the physical realm. So all of us that are existing here in this planet Earth are here to experience what it is to come from separation into that white light. Once again, all of these colors that you see here are infinite frequencies and iterations of duality that we all experience in many dimensional expressions until we learn how to come back to that white light, until we become the embodiment of white light. We integrate all of those fractal aspects of ourselves, right? Until we become one. And so we become one when we dissolve the illusion of separation between ourselves and the whole. That's what it comes down to. And that is the process of alchemization embodied. So when we are working with alchemization, the process of transmuting a low thought program into a higher frequency program is literally affecting your ancestral lineage. And it affects the ancestral lineage in such a way that it creates a mutation in your bloodline. And what ends up happening is that as you, can you see this? What ends up happening is that as you are integrating these fractals of yourself, you begin to access memory banks from the Akash or the morphogenetic field. And all of those things are the instructions that create form. The morphogenetic field is from which form is created. There's an intelligence that knows that it's going to create Katie, and it knows the color of her hair, the color of her eyes, the body shape, all of the life stories, the kind of father, the mother she's going to have, and all of the life experiences that she's experiencing all come into form in an intelligent, self-organized manner in order for Katie to experience this lifetime and to explore the possibilities of transmutation through the lowest levels of her experience into the highest. It's to experience the full rainbow of emotional possibility. Okay, and so what happens is that we begin to access pockets of information that is in our body through our emotions that connect us to mom, dad, and then great grandma. Okay, here in this example. And then we go back to their ancestors and we discover that all our ancestors have adopted programs that we are holding. The organs in our body are holding the collective trauma that has been passed down through the mitochondria of these generations. So when we begin to transmute some of these low frequency thought forms and programs, we literally begin to access this information and lift it, rise it, shift it. That's really huge, right? So another thing that's incredibly important about this is that when we reach our highest expression, we automatically change our vibrational frequency, and we know that we become a conduit of life force. Therefore, that conduit of life force changes the way that they talk, speak, feel, act, and present and express themselves. And therefore, it allows to become a beacon of light for any other being that is interconnected to them. The connection between the parent and child is one that is a biochemical, bioelectrical system. This is scientifically known that the binding connection, this is why telepathy is available for families. There's telepathic communication between families and for partners, especially sexual partners, because our magnetic field merges with the field of the other when we unite in union. So that union that occurs to create the merging of these fields allows, by resonance, these systems to begin to come together. And they allow any kind of communication through the field to be available to them. So when we talk about telepathic communication, we're going to do that in our workshop this weekend. When we access telepathic communication, we are literally tuning into the morphogenetic field from which connects us all. And we'll talk about that then. But let's talk about the alchemy and how it affects. the moment that we begin to alchemize a certain program in our DNA, we are literally creating a higher density frequency in the body. And this higher density frequency literally is transferred into the organs and the DNA. The DNA begins to write in such a magnificent way that it allows the body to access and activate DNA. DNA that looks like, we have the double, triple, and quadruple helix. It begins to activate a holographic system which continues to extend around it. That's the holographic DNA that is available to the body. So it's no longer just triple or quadruple DNA. It ends up being more than that in the morphogenetic field. So this activation of DNA allows access to higher dimensional planes, because each higher level of DNA is equivalent to a dimensional plane, a crystallization, a different crystallization, which is formed on a different set of platonic solids and geometric expression. So the entire body changes its form. The geometric expression of the entire body, the way that it moves life force through the body, can become higher geometrical expressions. And those geometrical expressions are how light bends and forms and moves in order to access higher dimensional planes. So we are literally accessing that within our physical body. So these mutations, when we have a lot of healers and powerful bloodlines historically, because remember that we all come from one origin. We know that to be true genetically, and on our earth that we are all related. You and I have a relative in common just 2,000-3,000 years ago that bind us together as relatives. So if you keep going back, we all come back from one origin. So this origin was created and designed historically through certain bloodlines, through history, in which was practiced the preservation of these bloodlines. And the preservation of those bloodlines produced deep embedding and crystallization of certain programs of separation. So when we're doing the alchemical transmutation, we're breaking these crystallized programs within our DNA, which are existing in the hologram. So that's why sometimes it's going to feel difficult to break these programs, because it's not known. It's not known in you. It's not known in your parent. It's not known in your grandparent. And everything that we don't have encoded in our body is going to feel very foreign. So we literally have to we become pioneers, the new human that we talk about. You become a new human because you have to break all of the generations of information that has become crystallized within your organism. When we pass down illnesses, that's a crystallization of suffering from generations before. Patterns that created an environment in the body for illness. We inherit that if we want to. But we're not married to that DNA. We have the opportunity in vivo, in this present moment. What does in vivo mean? It means in this present living moment, we have the ability to write the DNA in a way that can be more creative. This is the creation. This is where the human begins to experience sovereignty, meaning that it's not managed or it's not a product by its environment without, inherently unconscious of the choices and its participation in this matrix. So to experience true free will, and we talked a little bit about free will before. Free will is a complex topic. We are an interconnected organism as part of a whole. So in reality, free will it's not really what we think it is. Free will in this case And it's important that we take this mature approach to what free will is, that we are participating with our choices in order to create the highest good, not only for ourselves as an individual organism, but one that affects the entire whole. And that's an automatic side effect of expanding your light, growing your light, becoming aware of yourself in all dimensional planes, waking up and integrating fractals of yourself multidimensionally, allow you to see and change your perspective, broaden your perspective. When I was taken on board Craft in 2013, I was shown ET language, and their language, it's as if they speak in universes, in infinities. And it's a way of thinking that would break a human brain, because our human brain is so myopic. We only look at things that are directly in front of us. And even then, we're not even thinking about what's in front of us. Our mind and our attention is in the past or in the future. So all of that is an illusion of this matrix that we need to break away from in order to be able to transcend the limitations and be able to see broad beyond this matrix. If you can't see beyond the matrix, you're just a product of the matrix. Okay, so the matrix, up until those 13-dimensional layers, is how we are navigating. And remember that we are learning how to become one in all 13-dimensional layers. Okay, so when we master the first 3 chakras of the body, we begin to activate heart, throat, third eye, higher faculties. Okay, so we broaden our vision. We begin to see interdimensionally. We begin to use intuition. You are accessing the field, the morphogenetic field of the Akashic records. We have mediums, we have psychics, we have telepathic communicators. We have people that know how to bilocate energetically. We have remote viewers, right? All of these are real things that have been utilized and inverted by government programs, by CIA programs, or whatever their agendas are, but it has not been taught in school to humanity, because if humanity would learn how to train themselves in these fields, we would be at a completely different state of existence right now. And we are headed in that direction. And if we do not activate these activities within us, we will be inserted artificial intelligence that will bind us to the network, that will become more sentient as we move towards artificial intelligence already happening. I mean, even our phones are picking up brain waves of information in order to market information to you. Okay, and it's not so this is a big thing, that the more unconscious we become, the more codependent and less sovereign, more entangled within the matrix we become. So the ability to access these higher faculties is the first step into entering into an existence of sovereignty. And the next step is to activate and learn how to navigate dream state. When we sleep and we enter into the dream state, leaving the body through the vortex field of the body, the moment you go to sleep, you begin to access into these higher dimensional planes. Okay, so you become, and this is why we want to practice lucid dreaming. The more conscious you are in your waking state, the more conscious you are in dream states. So you enter into these different dimensional planes and you're going to experience the same thing. Why? Because this is all the matrix. There's a lot of parasitic entities, beings, ET species that thrive off the imbalanced exchange because they are parasitic. And we need to learn how to discern how we interact with other organisms. And as we reach higher dimensions, we cannot be afraid. The biggest block in a person's ascension is the fear of the unknown. So we have to train ourselves to be in love with the unknown in such a way that we can hold our space. regardless of what we see, what we experience, what we encounter. And the key to doing that is to entering the 0 point, the 0 point of non-judgment. This is where we begin to access from the lower forms into the higher forms in our body in a way that we can access this higher unity consciousness. We become white light when we embody the 0 point of non-judgment, because non-judgment means that our life force is not being depleted, bled from the body. And the mutations through history, if you were to look at your genetic lineage to see where you originate from, all of your ancestors, you do the 23andMe. I don't advise it, don't do it. It's a long story. We won't go there today. But when you begin to explore your genetic data and your history of your ancestors, you begin to discover that a lot of this information that is available to you is hold on, I forget what my point was with that, because I want to make sure I'm really accurate. Oh, okay, yes, I got it. Thank you. So what we discover through the ancestral lineage is that you begin to notice that in your past lives, some of you have been sages, some of you have been sorcerers, masters of life force in whatever form that takes, masters of life force. Any time that we have accessed high points in our evolution, we need to look at the pattern. Why do we reach that high point and then go back into the reincarnation cycle? This is where we need to wake up consciousness, because we need to understand what's our pattern. And you are repeating the same pattern in this lifetime. And it's not just like mom and dad problems. We're talking about existential understanding of your existence and your meaning, your purpose, your higher purpose beyond the everyday, quotidian life. This goes beyond that. It goes into the higher, your soul journey. And the soul journey is about the alchemical transmutation. That's what it is. This is the hidden knowledge in our world that has been suppressed. And going deeper into this topic, we talk about why it's suppressed. If you understand the cultivation of your life force, if you understand alchemization and how we truly access and cultivate life force, all of that has to do with the lower dantian, okay? So our sexual life force energy, which is the most powerful creative life force, is utilized against the human because the human doesn't study itself. It doesn't learn itself in a way that it masters its own self. Sexual life force energy is the juice of life that creates another human being. Another entire universe is what's created. And when the mother and father, they unite, right? They unite by love. And that love is infused with individual codes of frequency. Each human has their own vibrational signature. That vibrational signature is informed by everything that they have been and everything that they have the potential of becoming based on their work, shadow work, light work, all of that. They have a frequency. So when these two organisms unite, it's by resonance, number one, meaning they have the same core subconscious belief systems. And those subconscious belief systems then merge to create the human. So the sperm and the egg. And these two organic data is infused with the frequency of each individual. When those unite, it creates another implosion, like we talked about, this incredible colliding of life force. And that collision of life force is what creates the iron and is what creates the phosphorus in the DNA and all of the other chemicals that are necessary to create this organism that begins the mitosis of cell division in the zygote to produce the zygote, then the fetus, through this gestation process. And it's through that developmental process that begins to self-organize through the intelligence of these frequencies, the organism that binds and creates a vessel for the soul to begin to incarnate. And this is important because when we co-create and we create a human unconsciously, when we haven't done any work, all that we're doing is repeating cyclical patterns of trauma and suffering that we have inherited. This is very huge. So there is a responsibility for the human in co-creation. Our ability to co-create is magnificent. It's everything that we speak, everything we create in our minds, everything we imagine is creating. It's inputting into the system. Just the way your phone picks up your vocal cues to provide you with marketing, you are putting vibrational frequency cues into this system and it is responding to you. So let's take it the next step into the role of parenting. When we create a living organism from an unconscious state, from fear, anxiety, anger, the destruction of what is divine through violence, all of those things are the inversion. This is from where, we have all these terrible black magic coming from. What's the opposite of white magic is dark magic. When you destruct these sexual life forces in the body through abuse, through violence, this is how you fractalize the human, the most quickest, most powerful way. And fractalization means that you are creating another layer. Remember, we talked about the inner layer and the outer layer. The inner layer is your ancestral lineage. The outer layer is your multidimensionality. But within the inner layer, within your morphogenetic field, you become fractalized within your own self, your organism, your entire, yourself. And what that means is that even alternate selves that are suspended within the field are created. That creates debris, like really powerful debris, trauma in the body that doesn't allow the human to integrate or heal or move their vortex in a faster way. So this kind of abuse, the inversion of what is divine, creates an entanglement for the human, which means that if they can't transcend that trauma in their lifetime, they're going to come back into the reincarnation cycle in order to continue to feed and sustain a parasitic system. They become part of a parasitic system. It doesn't mean the matrix is 100% parasitic, because everything has duality, but your participation will define what you experience. So if you participate in sustaining parasitic embodiment, cultivation of parasitism, you live in a parasitic matrix. There's no new earth. There is only the new human. And the new human is the embodiment and the activation of this higher dimensional awareness and cultivation. So in the hybridization, for example, when we begin to access these beings that are combined with other species, we are literally beginning to access organisms that are produced knowing, understanding these mechanics. And we know that because after interviewing hundreds of men and women that have participated, the way that they conceive the new organism that creates either our earth hybrid kids, our kids today that are highly crystal, rainbow, indigo, all of these waves of life forces, consciousness that we have in this earth are always an evolution because of the way that this world is moving. We are moving in a toroidal, we are moving in a spiral motion, which means we are evolving. And as we evolve, the frequency of this entire universe is higher frequency. And that allows us to, every new generation is matching that higher next frequency of this wave. So every child that's born is encoded with a vibrational frequency that matches potential futures. It's encoded in their DNA. Okay, but it also can hold, of course, as we mentioned, past. So hybrids and star seeds are all activated with specific dimensional planes, specific DNA that allows the organism to transcend the matrix in their unique manner. And we need to learn how to break and transcend from those blockages. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to leave that here today because I know that's a lot. And I'll just let you give you some time to digest that. And I guess this will be kind of a two-part day. Today, 10 and 11 will be a two-part day because we need to digest this information. And tomorrow, I would like to take you into a meditation where we will work with the alchemization, with the transmutation, and learn how to reintegrate those fractals through alchemization. Because it is already 9:30 now. So I want to give you some time to digest what I just talked about. I know it's a lot. If you guys have any questions, put it in the chat below. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to jump into the chat now to see if I have any questions. Kia ora, welcome from New Zealand. Thank you so much for waiting. YJ Overlander, I begin every day with a happy dog. Then after she gets her morning ear scratches, I connect with my kids. That's great. I'm so happy you embody love. I sing to my plants. That's awesome. Silban, thank you so much for that generous super chat. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me. Silban says, your teachings are a priceless blessing. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. Love you. Katie Tian, so true. My husband and I mirror with our body. If one tired, other shifting, other two. Yep. In partnerships. And we'll talk about that another day, but the alchemy between partners is huge. It's another huge topic that's really important. Yannick Yoda, thank you so much for that super chat. I'm really grateful. Thank you very much. Jay Overlander, thank you for that comment. Mama Ren, thank you for that comment. Geraldine, thank you so much. Much love to you. Love you too. Thank you very much. Let me see if I have any questions here. I have witnessed my phone reading my thoughts. Yes, me too. It's amazing. Is there a place besides 23andMe you'd recommend? I'm sorry to tell you, but these companies are all owned by umbrella companies, and unfortunately, they are linked to the database of genetics, which is through the Latter-day, what is it called? Latter-day Saint, Mormons. The Mormon Church does own a lot of these companies because they are in charge of a lot of these DNA records and database. And if you look at the history behind that, I highly invite you to check out the history of their geneticists. They are the best geneticists in the world because they have preserved this information for a very long time. However, this information is not private, it's sold to companies. And there are companies right now that are highly focused. I just went to the genetics and genome conferences here in San Diego in California. And the kind of technology that is coming out now with the open use of our DNA banks from people that submit their DNA is unbelievable. I mean, there is nothing that will be, forget about privacy. There really isn't that anyway now, but it's not that we need privacy, but the problem is that when this information goes into the hands of people that don't respect boundaries and are for profit, that's always going to be a scale of pushing the needs of things that are consumer based rather than well-being of mankind. So I would just really do some research on that to see if you really want to participate. You're welcome to do it. There's nothing wrong with it. I personally don't agree with that process, but that's just me. And if you want to get it, please do get it. I also know that they don't really provide you the most accurate information. There's lots of controversy about the kind of information that's being provided. I feel that it's so much of a service to self kind of system that isn't really giving you the true core information. And I believe that if we do get into the real core information that DNA provides us, which I already know that they have the technology to access, we would be having different conversations about our ET races, bloodlines, multidimensional aspects of ourselves, because there is a human trafficking system, and there is an interest in DNA and specific family bloodlines in our world. And that is not an isolated topic from this DNA database. It's an interconnected system of information, and information is currency in order to create money and control systems. So we need to just pay really close attention, because the kind of technology that's going to be coming out this year and next year are really going to impact the way that we navigate our world into something in which DNA is the next ID card. And I've known that for about 6 years already since I had my experiences. And it's all come true. Like, how CRISPR came on the market, how we started to get all kinds of things, including the vaccines and everything that's happening right now, because of the importance of DNA in combination with bloodlines. There's a silent eugenics kind of program that is taking place in our world that we are not aware of. And it's affecting, because everything affects us. And so it's a chain reaction. What we eat, what we do in our lives, what we consume, um, TV, music, all of these things play a role in that, in the forming of your DNA, because DNA is written in vivo. So we have to be very conscious in regards to what we are inputting into this very incredibly important instrument. Okay. Katie Ann, thank you so much for that super chat. I greatly appreciate it. Genetic family testing, 23andMe is possibly a honeypot for the wrong people to gain knowledge they do not deserve, and they own your DNA. At that point, they still sell it. Your DNA shouldn't be for sale. Agreed. Geraldine, that was very, very enlightening. You're a wonderful person. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Bella, thank you so much. Love you. Siobhan, thank you. Kevin, it's a lot. Thank you, beautiful Geraldine. Take your time. You can re-listen, take little parts by part. If you have questions, ask me. Sometimes I don't know how deep and into the details to get, because I don't want to lose you guys. So ask me questions and I'll be happy to answer more. Where do we access these slides for us to review? Not all of these slides will be available from today's presentation, but some of them will. And Lee, thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate it. But they will be on the app. So please download the Spaces application in order to access this information. Okay. This is how says, have a great night, Geraldine. Thank you for everything, Pete. Fidel, thank you so much for that super chat. Wow, guys, you guys are super generous. I'm really appreciative of you guys. Thank you very much. It means a lot. Thank you so much for this information, San Lazuni, and all that you offer. This challenge and workshop has been one of my favorite of yours. I so appreciate your generosity of sharing your experiences and wisdom. Thank you, Lee. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. This information is incredible. Thank you, Darina. You are much appreciated. Thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much, guys. Pamela Rose, thank you. Darina says, I'm wondering about family and all. Are we sometimes grown on families that are not at all in the same frequency as us? Well, you will be surprised, but unless you have completely integrated all the traumas or experiences that you've had in your life connecting to your family, you're still in resonance with them, right? And the idea is that when we embody unconditional love, we begin to see the patterns that we are holding on to from family, and it'll change the way that you see them. It doesn't see families. We have an idea that, our family is mother, father, they play a certain role and we have to play by those roles. But remember that every soul that incarnates into this planet is a sovereign human organism, and they are also evolving on their journey. So we have to hold space as individuals. Don't think about mother father roles anymore, because those are kind of institutional thinking that we've kind of adopted. There's a biological element, but as you can see from our conversation today about alchemy, it's a completely different laws that we abide by in nature. And what is close to nature is balance. So as long as we're maintaining balance with whoever we live with or interact with, that's actually where we can find our ability to transcend. Yep, China's making designer babies. Yes, they are. They have been. We love you so much. I love you, Grace. My GF has learned a lot about herself from her genetics. It's made me really curious, but I don't trust any of the DNA companies. I'm sure there's one that I can trust somewhere. Yeah, I'm sure that there is something. I mean, even if you do get it, from those companies, just be mindful that, eventually our DNA is just not private. Luana, so good to see you. Dean Davis, thank you so much. Uh, Priceless. Thank you so much, Katie Ann. We'll post a link for this info on your website. I couldn't find it. Please download the app. Hi, Geraldine. I'm learning to discern if I defaulted to a coping mechanism of detaching from someone after they disappointed versus allowing a connection to naturally fall away due to a lack of resistance. Yes, excellent, Learn. What app, please? It's called the Spaces app by Wix, and it would allow you to access all of the days, the previous days of our challenge, as well as sign up for the challenge. So please do check that out. Gee, how is it that we fall back down after reaching certain higher heights in past lives? I'll give you a really quick example. You become a healer or a monk, and you reach this highest point of consciousness, but something happens where you don't know how to control that power. You get intimidated or overwhelmed, or the ego gets identified with the power, and you misuse that power. And so what happens is that you become a fallen angel, okay? Because we are all angelic beings at some core point, but we fall from that highest point of consciousness. And in that low point that we don't pick ourselves back up. So we experience that kind of fall, that's an existential fall that we're also experiencing in this three-dimensional plane, that we are like fallen angels that come down and descend into the third dimensional plane to experience the three-dimensional plane temporarily. But we are learning how to alchemize from the lowest to the highest. That's the whole point. So everything is this alchemical journey in a way of transmuting this metal into this gold, to this purified light vibration that's super high, that allows you to travel into higher dimensions as all of it, the third, the second, the first, and the 24th. You are all of that simultaneously. So we repeat those patterns in our life. I can give you a quick example. I had it today right before I talked to you in my session. Somebody has a issue with family member, and they feel powerless in these abusive relationships. So in the abusive relationships, instead of remembering their power, they just kind of surrender in a way that's toxic, without boundaries, and they keep repeating this perpetual cycle of suffering in all areas of life. So that's kind of how we repeat that pattern in your everyday life. Okay, so just take a look at that and see if you can try to break those patterns. All right. I love you guys very much. I want to thank you for your generosity. You guys are amazing, and I'll see you tomorrow. All my love.